This is Life with Herpes, and this is episode 95. I'm Alexandra Harbushka, host of the show Life with Herpes, and today we have a really special guest. She's known for her coaching and her transformational healing work and body work. She's a certified holistic pelvic care provider and a Reiki master. She practices holistic vagina and rectal therapy, and she was a child mystic and is a real shamanic, had to practice that word, shamanic practitioner. She's obsessed with helping people find and express their true self and helping you hear your own inner wisdom and express your own unique gifts. She can help you move through pain, blocks, trauma, stagnation, difficult transitions to help you find healing. So obviously, she's perfect for us. She's perfect for our show, Dealing with Herpes. And I just could not wait to bring you my friend, Sophia Wise One. So, Sophia, how are you?
Hello! I'm so happy. Hello! That's how I feel right now. Hello, everybody. Hi, darlings. I'm so happy to be here. That's how I feel.
I love it. So you guys, Sophia and I met at a podcast conference. Actually, was it a year ago or...
Somewhere,
we met at the New Media Summit.
And then we met again.
Yeah, so we met in San Diego and in Orlando.
Yeah.
And we shared an avocado in Orlando because there was no healthy food, and I brought my avocados from San Diego.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so where are you right now?
I am in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Nice. I'm in Las Vegas. And is Honey Bear with you?
Honey Bear is with me. She's right there. Honey Bear. Come here. Come here. Let's see if she'll come all the way. Come here. Pee-pee. Come on. Oh, you know how they come so close?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Oh, yeah? You come say hi? You come say hi?
Hi, Honey Bear.
It's a Honey Bear.
Hi. So this, if you are watching on YouTube, you can see that this is Sophia's cat. If you're not, I'm letting you know it's
oh my goodness.
Cat.
This is so special because Honey Bear also has herpes.
She does?
Yes.
Oh, that's perfect. She's like the star of the show.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
That is perfect.
She has cat herpes and she has
Yeah, so it's full circle.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
She's comfy right now. She moves along. Okay. All right. That's Honey Bear.
That's Honey Bear. All right. Okay, so Sophia, I cannot wait to just, as you're blowing off the hair, I cannot wait to just dive deep. So can you explain what a holistic vagina and rectal therapist is and what it means to be a holistic pelvic care provider and all that? So, because I wouldn't do it justice. So.
Right. Okay. So before I jump into that, I want to say something that's really exciting for me recently is that right now I'm doing clinics on male-bodied genitalia as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, that's just an exciting thing. So vagina, rectum, penis, testes, like all the generative organs are the holistic perspective pieces. If they're not just body parts, mm-hmm. They're also this landscape or this space that holds information about our emotional well-being, our mental health, and our spiritual or energetic self. Mm-hmm. And so when I interact with them, I approach with a respect and an interest to all of those things simultaneously.
Great. Wow. This is so fascinating to me.
Yeah. So it's like, kind of like, you know, when somebody gives you a hug and they're just like, it's like a little hug, like a pat mm-hmm. hug. You're mm-hmm. like, oh, it's just like a little hug. And then it's like, oh, the like mama bear hug. Like when someone like comes in and they hold you and it's like they're holding your heart and they like give a little squeeze or give a little rock and you just can't help but the truth falls out of your mouth. You know, like that kind of just like, it feels like a greater ocean of love is coming in. Mm-hmm. You know, that's like that holistic, that whole being kind of embrace. And so I ask and I hope and I pray that I bring that kind of presence from myself, as well as listening to that presence or that quality of you in that same way. Yeah.
Wow. So interesting. So interesting. So how does it, so because before we started recording, we were talking about kind of the root, and basically, so the root, so I'm going to try and explain it, but you're going to do a much better job of it. But the root is basically our pelvic area. So penis for man, vagina for woman. And that area is where we hold a lot of our energy, our anger, our hurt, our dreams, our desires. That's basically like we kind of create a little dam there, and so the water can't flow, you know, to use that analogy. And that's kind of what happens in our bodies. Am I correct?
You're 100% correct.
Okay.
So that, and the only thing I'll just say, just because I know it's very alive in my personal world and thing, which is just the notion that like male bodied, female bodied, gender, non-binary, all of those things, like wherever someone identifies or experiences themselves, they still have a few things that aren't defined by your gender identity or your sex, your body. One is womb energy. And womb energy is the space in which we hold energetically our creative or generative self. So any place you were talking about this is like what you were talking about, our dreams, that what we want, our desires, that happens in our womb space. So female bodied people have that most of the time energetically inside. Male bodied people often on the outside, though those things can even migrate. One of my favorite teachings, one of my favorite ways to kind of talk about the root, this place. So if you think about your root like a bowl, and I'm trained as a holistic care provider. That was a training by Tammy Kent, who wrote a wonderful book that if anyone wants to, this is like a great thing, Wild Feminine. And I went and studied with her. She talks a lot about the pelvic bowl, and that's the base. If you think of like the taint, right? You think of like the bottom of the body, and then up into the hips, and then just draw a line. That's the pelvic bowl. So when we're talking about the root, well, depending on what lineages you're in terms of yoga and things like that, sometimes the root is specifically, it's separate from the sacral. But when I'm talking about it, it's both the root and the base energy and the sacral energy. So it's all of that in the bowl. And, you know, the primary kind of bowl teaching for me, root teaching, is I'm made of space and matter. I take up space and I matter. So anything that's connected to you taking up space and existing, and anything that's connected to you mattering. So whether that's having purpose in your life or feeling valued by other people, being in relationship or honoring your own needs, that's all root stuff. So everything that you talked about, right? Because anger is, a lot of the time, anger is the voice of an unmet need. We get angry when we need something that we're not getting.
Yeah, where there's resentment, it's the buildup of not expressing your feelings, your desires, your dreams, your hopes. Okay, yeah, that makes absolute sense. Anger is because it's just an unmet desire.
Yeah, and
jealousy.
And also, so the other thing is, like, the other aspect of it is it points us towards justice. Like, anger shows us where there's injustice, which means it's pointing us towards where we need a boundary. So a lot of the time, if we're slowed down and really connected, we're feeling really safe, let's say we're with a best friend that we feel like we can say anything to, and they say something that hits us the wrong way. And because we're so relaxed and so safe, right away we say like, oh, that kind of stung a little bit. And then we have a conversation right then and there. Like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. It's like, oh, it just came out. I'm sorry, that makes sense, especially after last week. Oh God, okay, right? It's like there's a moment, and it's like there was a little feeling, and then a voicing and acknowledging, and a boundary. Like, I don't want you to, I don't want that. It's like, okay, reestablished, right? That's the same energy as anger. Only the big, vibrant, like demanding anger is when it doesn't get listened to or taken care of in that like light, tender way, or that like quick, in the moment way. When it builds, it's like the voice that's like, I'm not going to give this up because it's important, is the anger voice. And I get really into this because I think anger gets a really bad rap in our culture. It's like, don't be angry. like anger is bad. You have to like take care of your anger. And it's that's all true. Like that's all really true. Just raging and spilling your anger over people is a violent and painful act for yourself and other people, for sure. And learning that it is inherently holding something that's important, and that there is something, a desire, a need, a boundary that needs to be expressed, can really change everything.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that's all stored in our womb.
Yeah, our whole root. So our ovaries are our testicles, our like vaginal canal, our rectum, our shaft. Like we're holding this, what we need, what we want, knowledge, this knowing. And that's one of the things. It's like if our thinking happens in our head and our feeling happens in our heart, our knowing happens in our root.
Okay, so I gotta digest. So our feeling happens in our heart.
Mm-hmm. Like emotional feeling.
Okay, so like you're overwhelmed with joy, or this is gonna happen.
Right. That's like this. Right.
Then that happens in our. That's because so say it again. Yeah, I lost it.
So what I'm saying is we think about things a lot. We thinking, and we're like, okay, that's what I think about this. This is what I think about that. Okay, opinions, right? Mm-hmm. That would take place in like a holistic perspective, largely in a headspace. So shoulders up, right? That's like a headspace. A feeling like I really love you, or I care, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling joyful, I'm feeling relaxed, right? Like this kind of like, I'm having this feeling that happens like in the heart and the upper belly. It's this like, it's this like feeling, it's like that gut feeling, right? It's like, I know, and I don't know how to describe it. There's another word for feeling, like an emotional experience. Okay. And then in our root, in some ways, it's like our root is the place where when you just know something, and it's like, it's not like you have a feeling, people are like, do you have a bad feeling or good? And it's like, no, I don't have a bad feeling. It's just like, I just know this, like, I know it's true. And it's like, well, do you think that? And it's like, no, it's not an opinion. It's like, I know it. And a lot of people don't actually have the experience of that knowing because they're not connected that deep into their bodies. So people, like, one of the things that I know this is really, really common for women identifying and female bodied people, where it's like, we don't know what we want. Just being like that's like so common. And honestly, that's a plague upon us all in this like kind of like dominant Western colonized culture. It's just like, it's a plague that people don't know what they want. Well, knowing what you want is it's very similar in terms of it's as natural as thinking an opinion, but because we're so disconnected, it doesn't feel natural. It feels like, how could we ever know? And that's why getting into the root can be so, first of all, scary, because a lot of time we've built our lives without knowing what we really want. And so the idea of like getting in there and finding out what we want is like, oh my God, what if I built this whole life and it's not what I want, right? So it's scary in that way. It's also just awesome and exciting, and often leads to a lot of pleasure. And yeah, sexually pleasure too, but like that's not even what I'm talking about. Like just being in that space of joy and connection, knowing you take up space and matter, like a deep kind of relaxation. Those occur in the body, in the root.
Wow. So when we're talking about herpes, genital herpes specifically, I mean, of course, oral herpes as well, but genital herpes specifically, does that mean that so basically what you're saying is when we finally get connected with it, accept it, see what it is, realize that it's a silly rash, that it will dissolve itself kind of in its physical, or because herpes is so shameful. It creates anger, it creates breakups, it creates distrust, it creates lies, it creates secrets. It basically a lot, because so many people get so caught up in this space of like, my life is over because of herpes, and that's such a connection, in my opinion, and from what you're saying, such a connection, and there's no doubt in my mind that it's genital herpes that is the most stigmatized one, because it has to do with our root chakra, or our root area.
Right. Like cold sores, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, cold sore.
Genital herpes, like cold sore. It's like, oh, well, everybody has cold sores. Right?
And they do.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do, but it's not nearly as stigmatized as genital herpes. So, okay. So I would love, and I'm open, and I am sure that it is true that for some people, they get connected to their root. They clear a lot of the congestion, right? Energetic, emotional, physical, mental stories about themselves, that clears, and that also in result clears the rash. I'm sure that happens. I am not going to say that that's what always happens. And the reason I'm going to not say that is because we have this opinion about our bodies, like either it's working for us or it's working against us. Like our body's either being a good body or our body's being a bad body. And our body is bad and it's in trouble. And I fundamentally don't agree with that. And so the notion that we could do all the right things and then our body would stop being a bad body, that to have a rash means my body's being bad, as opposed to having a rash be my body expressing and functioning in the way that it knows how, in the circumstance that it's in, and that our body is part of, this is part of that shamanic perspective that I have, which is that my soul incarnated here to take a journey and to learn stuff and to radiate and to experience things. That's why I'm here. And so it's just like a long road of like stuff that will cause insight, growth, learning, healing. And so our bodies are often part of that road. And so they're not being bad bodies when they're communicating or they're guiding us or they're asking for things. They're not bad. And so sometimes you may do all the things and get really connected and it doesn't go away all the way. My immune system crashed like a year and a half ago. And one of the symptoms of that, when that happened, was that I was getting back-to-back cold sore outbreaks. It was like they weren't even clearing before they were coming up. And I'm sure some of your listeners know what that's like. It's like you get a whole nother one before it's cleared. And it's like, no, fuck. Like, no. You know?
I was just, we're over. It's over.
No. Right, exactly. Oh God, no, like at least give me 3 weeks, right? Like that, like that feeling. And it was really tempting for me to look at myself and say like, bad body, you know? Like I need a broken body. I need to fix you body, you know? And it's just like, I'll tell you what, that is not what helped my body heal. Like, you know what I mean? Like yelling at it and being mad at it was not what has helped me over the year and a half. And what's interesting is that one of the major things, and again, this is that holistic perspective, one of the major things that restored my immune system and quieted my outbreaks, and I'm still having them, they're still teaching me something. Like I'm still, you know, like I'm having them somewhat regularly. They're small, they're getting smaller. My body's responding faster. You know how sometimes you get a sore and it like heals up really fast. And sometimes you get a sore and it's like days of it, like weeks of it just being this like getting worse and worse, you know, that. So even that experience of how you're experiencing a particular rash, in my perspective, is information. It's information about how you're living, what's happening, what you're experiencing. And for me, what my immune system crash taught me, because that was only one of my symptoms that was happening. I couldn't walk 40 feet without getting winded. I was getting night sweats. These are like adrenal symptoms of things. Just like, I had that sense like I was just always going to get an infection or a cold. It was just like overall having these like back to back. And so as I really began to do the work that I know how to do, which was to be like, okay, body, good, sacred, holy vessel that's communicating with me. What are you trying to tell me? And one of the things that it told me was that I was participating in emotional enmeshment patterns. I was taking on the responsibility of other people's feelings for one day too many. My lifetime of being the emotional caretaker for other people when it wasn't really my job, my body was like, I'm fucking over it. And guess what? When you're sick, you stop taking care of people.
Yeah.
So this is at least one way that we can stop that. And so I had to make this decision. Do I get sick to not take care of people? Or do I have to be willing to take up space and be healthy and still not take care of other people's stuff that's not my stuff? And this was, you know, some of these insights came in moments, but I'm talking like a year and a half of slowly interrupting this stuff and changing, having the ways that my body expresses. And so I know it's like I have different symptoms. My knee goes out, things like that, where I'm like, I've been tired or I've been neglecting. I'm carrying around something that I've never totally addressed. And so when I get tired and lazy, it, you know, it comes up and says like, hey, I'm still here. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you're still there. I've not dealt with you.
Yeah. You just showed up again. Thanks.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I've really heard that from a couple of people, because not about you, not like, oh, it showed up still. No, that's not what I meant when I said that. No, but what I've heard from a number of people as they move through the journey of coping and healing and working and understanding and dealing with having herpes, once you kind of get through that, they go, gosh, you know what? I'm kind of glad I got it, because you know what? It got my shit together, or it forced me to do this, or it forced me to do that, or it forced me to whatever the reason is, right? And I think that if we can get that message out there, just like you're saying, is because I've heard a lot of people say, gosh, you know what? Actually getting herpes was a great thing in my life, because I know when my immune system shot. Otherwise, I would have been full steam ahead, autopilot, boom, 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 boom. And then I actually could have gotten something worse, you know, or, you know, like you're saying in your case, you were, you know, for a year and a half, your immune system was just, hey, I'm done. Like we're done here.
Yeah.
And it really is a great reminder to either, when you're going into a hard time, or you know you're going to compromise your body, like you know that just based on your whatever it is that's going on in your life, whether it's the holidays, whether it's travel, you can start preparing to gear up, right? You could take extra naps, you could whatever it is,
which is like so sane, right? like isn't that a great idea for everyone, right?
Concept,
and when I really do that, when I really take care of myself, my immune system doesn't get shot, and I don't. It's like it's always a miracle for me because it usually happens for me when I'm premenstrual, because when the hormones drop and the immune system, you know, often does a little drop in there. It's often a time for people to have, if they have any kind of chronic virus or flare, like that's a common time to flare up, you know. And so I always know that I've been taking really good care of myself when in that time I don't feel that immune vulnerable space where I'm like, right, you know, and that, so I want to say this because then your health can be a marker that is just as valuable as your dishealth.
Yeah.
Right? Like that our unwell-being, because so many of us are used to using our lack of wellness as our bells and our alarms of going too far. And so the process of learning how to just trust our body before like shit goes to hell in a handbasket. And I say that with this notion of like patience, like nobody don't take this home and beat yourself up with it. Like, please, like it's one of my rules that I always ask my clients and students is like, anything I say to you, if you start to use it as a weapon on you, put it down. Like, that's not the point. It's not about like, oh, I should have done this better and done a thing. It's just like, again, like our bodies, ourselves, we're just on a journey. Like we're just going to take this journey and then we're going to drop our bag of bones and then we're going to like dissipate in the cosmos. Like that's the whole thing. And so there's no, like, we're going to have days where we learn things one way, learn things another, and days where we just check out and decide we don't want to learn anything. Like, you know, and then like come back around because it's still waiting for us, whether we show up to it or not.
It's going to show up for us.
It'll show up for us.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that it was pretty much predisposed who was going to get herpes or not. If you look at it in a holistic or a cosmic way, right? it's pretty, I kind of think it's already planned out for you, and it's just a matter of when it shows up in your life, you know, because there's plenty of people that could have been exposed to it for 20, 30 years, and then all of a sudden it shows up year 30, and you're like, but I've gone this long without it, or what do you mean? Or yeah, whatever it is.
And to me, it's like, I do have that, I have that perspective of just like, do I? I don't know if that matters. I do have a sense of like, there are certain things and aspects. I trust it, whether I chose them or whether it was predetermined, like I have a trust in that. And what's kind of cool is that you don't have to believe that it's some cosmic truth if you're just willing to get in the practice of radical acceptance of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing of being like, I went 30 years, probably got exposed at least 10 times, at least. Right. And then I started expressing, just being like, so now that's this reality. And like, what does this reality have to show me? Right. Like it's the same thing, you know, and sometimes this happens, you know, a lot of those times our immune systems will really change with things that we don't always connect it to, like the loss of a parent or the birth of a child, or you know, a divorce, or a change of a really big job, or giving, sometimes it's a silent death where we give up on a dream.
Oh.
And so it's like these ways in which we, you know, they're initiated, which we're initiated into another kind of layer of being that, again, we're culturally not taught to pay attention as being connected to the body. Like that right? Like they're not connected. And what I can tell you from my experience, from my like 20 plus years of working with people in their bodies, is, because even though I'm young, I've been doing this a long time, and is that it is connected, that more often than not, and it's not 100%, because nothing is 100%, because each person is their own cosmos. Anytime I stopped making rules about how anything worked years ago, because anytime I would be like, okay, this is the thing, within 48 hours, something would show up to be like, okay, but like not then, like in that circumstance, it like wasn't the thing then. So it's like nothing is 100%, and very consistently when something happened, or an injury, sometimes people have an unrelated injury, a car accident, get whiplash, and then their immune system's behaving differently. But because it's a slow process, we don't notice it because it's 6 months or a year later. It couldn't be related, you know, and it is. When we get connected, it is. Our healing, the impact, the ripple that these moments have, you know, that's like an impact moment, and then they ripple through us, and it affects the way in which we navigate. And so learning how to get spacious with our life changing and slowing down to find out how everything that we go through is initiating us into a new way of being can be really helpful, because a lot of the time we're holding ourselves to who we thought we were, even if we're, let alone holding ourselves to who we're supposed to be.
I was going to say, or who society wants us to be, or who the people in our life expect us to be or want us to be, and all of that. And that's so beautiful that you were just kind of sharing that whole journey. And yeah, it's very interesting how herpes is so associated with anger. With it, and it usually, from what I have seen in most relationships, that there are those few people that it's like, hey, I've been happily married and it just showed up, and like my husband doesn't have it, or my wife doesn't have it, it just showed up, and I know we've both been faithful, and it just, there's those rare occasions that are, you know, but majority of the time, from what I've seen, the herpes virus pops up in people's life when shit hit the fan. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, my career, this breakup, or like what you're saying.
And blisters are fire medicine. They're water medicine and fire medicine. So they're water medicine because they're filled with fluid, right? Mm-hmm. Like, which often is, water's associated with emotions and intuition. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then they're fire medicine because they, like, the way they hurt. That pain, that like burning pain. Mm-hmm. So just sending love to all of you. Like, that's real. And that pain is an initiator. Pain is a couple things. Pain is a signal to change our behavior, to do something different. Nociceptors, literally, in like the most basic way, nociceptors are like nerves that tell us something hurts, are there to make us change, to like drop a frying pan, right? Like do something different. This hurts. Okay. So emotionally, that's the same thing. And it's fire medicine, and fire medicine is often a guardian.
So I've never heard of water medicine, fire medicine. Are there other medicines?
Oh my God, there's so many medicines, Alexandra.
Okay.
There's so many medicines. This is great. So let's like back up and define our terms here a minute. So medicine, when I refer to the term medicine, what I'm referring to is anything that interacts with our body that initiates an opportunity for us to heal.
That's
right?
Such a different way of looking at herpes, because we're looking at it as fuck this. Like, how did this happen to me? Now I can't do this. Now I can't do that. Now my dreams are done. I can't do this. That's such a good way to look at it.
Right. And so the elements that are in it, so poison ivy, which is also a blistering and fire, is also it's a fire medicine. It burns, it itches, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a fire medicine. Poison ivy is a guardian plant. Poison ivy often grows, almost exclusively, but not, often grows at the boundaries of like naturescapes where humans tend to tread. Once you get deep into forest, a lot of the time, you won't find poison ivy. Poison ivy just shows up at the boundary. It says, slow the fuck down. Watch where you're stepping, right? And so our body, so often I'm thinking about what are the elements, right? So the pieces that come into an experience that I'm having. That's one of the ways in which I can alchemize. So take something that is, right, take lead and turn it into gold. Or one of my beloveds has always said to me, there you go again, Sophia, turning poison into medicine. And that's where I really got that term, is like taking this poison and turning it into medicine. What determines whether it's medicine is dosage, right? So you can take ibuprofen and it's helpful, or you can take ibuprofen and it's poison, right? You can take the same thing. How much of it you take is toxic or useful. And that can happen over length of time or in one dosage, right? So dosing is one thing. And the other thing is like appropriateness, like whether it's the thing that you can like take it. Now, here's the thing about home body medicine, or medicine that comes from our own being, is that we can assume it's appropriate, right? We can assume that the dosing is right, which means the second part we need to do is like, how do we optimize the medicine? How do we like really take in the medicine? And that's one of the things that I say too, which is like, take your medicine. Like, we know, and like, how many times do we get clear about something that we know we need to do, and we negotiate all day about it? And have a partner that we know we shouldn't be with, but we're just like, well, we negotiate. We have a job that we hate, like things that we want to leave, right? And we're like compromising constantly. And so the things that make us, and so like, nobody wants to do that thing. So the medicine in this, like, I sit and I meditate and I'm like, tell me what to do. I'm so unhappy. What is it? And this little quiet voice inside of me says, quit my job, right? And so what I would say to someone is like, take your medicine, quit your job. And whatever happens when you quit your job, I can't quit my job. I won't have any money. Where will I live? And I'm like, that's your medicine. Quit your job. Don't have any money. Don't know where you live. See what happens, And for other people, quitting their job would not be their medicine. That would not, right? That would not be the appropriateness, would not be the thing. The medicine they get is, hate your job and stay in it. Show up every day, right? I'm suffering. I hate my job. They get a little quiet voice rises inside and says, stay, stick it out, keep learning. And so then your job is to stop complaining, stop negotiating with maybe you're going to leave, and fully show up. And that's the key to like how we make something medicine or medicinal, how we make it a healing thing, is we show up to it, and we show up to what we know about it and to what's happening.
Wow. So should we talk to our herpes?
Yes, for certain. Yeah.
How do you do that?
So there's a couple different ways. One is, I don't have it out yet. I'm in the process of publishing it, but I made a deck of cards, and it's made to help us cultivate these skills that I'm talking about here. Like, how do you get this intuitive message? How do you talk to your body? Like all of these things. And so in that whole thing, I'll have a guided, I call it the body wisdom approach. And so it's a way of like doing a meditation and doing this process of like talking to your body. So in the not too distant future, that will be in existence and you can listen to a guided practice from me.
Great.
In the meantime, let's look forward to having you all be benefited from that. In the meantime, there's two different ways that are really, people often get insight. One is meditating, which I would recommend taking a hand and placing it either directly on or right off of the area. So like right on your genitals, like really gently. If you're, if you're having it's a really painful, you be comfortable. You don't need to aggregate.
Don't put salt in the wound. Right.
No needs. And that can help us bring our focus, especially when we don't have a lot of practice of feeling our body from the inside. That can help us get connected to where we're sending it. And then so you put your hand nearby and then send a couple breaths and see if you can just begin to feel into that space. And then I often think about it like dropping a penny in a well. So you want to ask the question that you have for your herpes into like a penny into the well. And I say that because the question's the penny, and when it hits the water, it ripples. And so you want to feel for that watery answer. If you're just looking for a picture or a word, you might totally miss the answer from your body. It could be an emotion, it could be a memory, it could be a knowing, it could be a smell or a taste or a physical sensation or a tingling. Like these are the body talks in many, our being talks in many ways. So dropping that penny in and then just listening. The other thing I would say is always start with respectful. This is tricky. When we're angry with our bodies is to recognize that it's still helpful, because even though you're angry with something that you really love and care about. So to treat it, because it's your body, right? Like you wouldn't be angry about it if you didn't give two flying shits. Like that's not right. It's like you're right. It's like so to take that moment and just be like, I tell people sometimes like they told me to do this, they say it would work. Right? Like if you're like not sure about it, just being like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to like be really honest with yourself is very, very powerful. And to just be like, to just acknowledge how you're feeling before you even ask a question can be really helpful to like get you honest, get you clear, get you connected, and just be like, I want to know what you have to say, but I'm scared and I'm mad and I'm sad, but I'm willing. So, because the other thing to remember is that a rash is the immune system working. Like that's the other thing that it's a sign that the immune system is stressed, but it's also a sign that the immune system is addressing a virus. So it's like, so one of the times when I tell people it's not that I'm sick, it's that my body's working really hard.
Oh, I like that.
I'm very healthy. My body is actively working.
Right. It's working overtime right now.
That's right. It's working overtime. That's right. And so what do we need to do when we need overtime, right? We got to pay double.
Yeah.
Right. We got to
time and a half.
Time and a half. Like, yeah. It's like, how do we do that? So how can we be in respect for what's happening? And so to have the first step just be in acknowledging and talking to and saying like, I feel you working overtime. I feel this is painful. Like, empathizing with this, like, this is really sucks and painful. And then to really ask open-ended questions, like, what do you want me to know? What are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me that I'm ignoring? That I know? What do I know? What do I already know that I'm pretending I don't know? Right? Like these kinds of questions. And so you can do that physically just in your mind. And I'm a big fan of either verbally talking out loud, or just, or writing it down. And that's what I say. The two ways is to do it kind of inside quietly or out loud. And the other is to do the whole thing writing. So to write out the question and then answer it.
And so would you do this when you have an outbreak or anytime?
Yeah. Yes.
All the time?
That's right. Yes. All the time. I have conversations with my body every day, in some way or another. And, what happens is you begin to have an experience in which I don't have to make it such a formalized conversation. It becomes more of
it's not like when your parents sit you down, they're like, okay, so we're going to have a talk today about what just happened.
That's right. That's where you should start, right? It's like, this is where you got to start. It was like, we haven't been talking about this thing that's been going on for 10 years, and we're going to talk about it now.
Yeah.
Then 10 years later, when it's part of the normal thing, if there's something that comes up, then the body says like, hey, I'm feeling a little tired and stressed. I need time and a half before something happens.
The outbreak happens or whatever.
Or whatever it is, then you get that message because you've opened that channel of communication. So I would say wherever you are, and to recognize that, especially the other thing about root is like, so much of what we carry in our root, and we've talked about this already, is like how much are we talking about sex? Barely, right? Like there's never. It's like, I mean, periodically, right? So it's like, you know, there's so much energy, so much information, you know, tension patterns. And the other thing is for people to consider if they have really tight hips, knee issues, or low back pain, okay? And they're struggling with either, you know, either or, right? Are struggling with back-to-back breakouts. They might want to look into getting pelvic floor work, even just from a physical therapist pelvic floor work, because circulation, if there's just a lot of actual congestion, that can really tax the system. And so go ahead.
Explain what pelvic floor work is.
Great.
Because I'm thinking like, all right, I'll go to some Pilates and I'll do like some, you know, like the, okay, and 1, 2, 3, like that's
great. Yeah, not what I meant.
I know. Yeah. So that's,
thank you. Though that's also good. I wouldn't say that's not what I meant. And that's also, you know, getting in there, getting circulation, that's great. The thing is that most of us, if we have a stressed, and this is true anywhere in our body, we have a stressed pattern in our body. When we go and do a workout, we just exacerbate the stress pattern. If the movement isn't slow enough that we can create new patterns, or if we're not working with someone like a yoga teacher one-on-one or a personal trainer or a physical therapist, then a lot of the time we're just exacerbating our stress patterns rather than improving anything. So if you're having all of these pain things, unless you know that like it just is like, you're just like, oh no, I know when I go to yoga 3 times a week, my back pain goes away. I'm like, okay, offering you a big hug and a high five, go to yoga, right? It's like, maybe we all do that. Maybe we all just do the things we know we need to do. If you don't have that kind of clarity, if it's more of a like, yeah, maybe let me check it out, I'm really a huge advocate of working with professionals, because we cannot see our own blind spots. And more often than not, our blind spots are our trauma spots. And so it makes sense that we're not seeing them, and it makes sense to not want to see them by ourselves or in a room with 50 people we don't know. Like I'll go into a room with 50 people I don't know and bawl my eyes out, but I'm a professional at bawling my eyes out. That's different. I've studied the art, you know? And so to respect that. And you don't have to have trauma that's this like checklist of these are things. Like we live in a traumatized, like exacerbated world. And that trauma can be anything from like physical trauma, like falling off a bike when you were 12, right? That like there's an impact or a car accident, or having, you know, a sibling who was constantly fighting with you and shoving you. They never punched you, but every time you walked home, you were nervous. Like that creates a tension pattern that we're carrying around. And that 20 years later, we don't know why we can't put this one shoulder down. And it's because we are just carrying around the memory of like hoping our sibling isn't going to like punch us on the shoulder. And so to take the time to like, but to get the support that we need to be able to drop that down. Because if we could see it a lot of the time, and this is again, that trusting the body piece, which is like, if you could see it and let it go and do something different, you would.
Oh, totally. You'd put your shoulder down, or you would open your hips, or you would, yeah,
like you're good. Like you're good. You're doing a good job. You're doing the best you know how. And so if you want to do something different or in a way that is more comfortable in your being, getting help and support is, you know, again, part of that vision of like, we're on this journey, and that like, we do this together. Like we're on this journey together, and we're reflections. We help each other see those things. That's why even just friendships and romantic relationships and family relationships can be so useful, because they help us see our blind spots if we have the courage to not get defensive and tight around them.
I was going to say, well, sometimes it doesn't work out. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes those people are, they don't mean to be, or they do, but they're abusive and they're dangerous. And like, that's not the place to do it. Sometimes that's not the appropriate safe place. You know, if when you go home, you're dealing with a bunch of addicts who are dissociating and don't know, then you may be learning a different thing about boundaries and knowing when to leave. That might be more of your healing, more of your medicine than like, you know, listening to their opinions about how you're a shit. It's like, no, right? Like that's not the reflection I'm talking about.
Right. Right. Interesting. So interesting. I love that. I mean, that's just so, yeah, that's, and I wonder, and this is something that I wouldn't know, and there's probably no, article on it or research on it. But like you said, if you have genital herpes and your hips are tight or lower back pain, or you said even knees, why would knees be it?
Because what goes into our pelvic floor, we go into our pelvic floor from the top and we go in from the bottom. So our knees are just joints held by our legs and then our quads and our hamstrings. So if you have tight quads or hamstrings, they will give you knee pain. And if they're giving you knee pain, it's very likely they're also pulling on your pelvic floor.
Interesting. So interesting. So for women, are Kegels a good thing to do?
Oh my God. I'm really glad you asked. Please, everybody stop doing Kegels immediately.
Really?
Yes. And we'll talk about, everybody take a breath. No, I'm the only one freaking out. You're all fine. Hold on a second.
I thought Kegels were like what everybody is supposed to do.
Yes. So we already talked about this, which is that when you have patterns of like out of balance patterns, and then you work them out, you do Kegels and you work them, then you're just reinforcing what's out of balance. So the muscles that can engage will engage, and the muscles that you're not engaging or that are weak, those don't get stronger, they get weaker.
They just stay dormant, or they stay inactive.
Or they get stressed and get more compressed. I mean, it can really be highly counterproductive. The other thing is a good, healthy, like vibrant pelvic floor doesn't just pull up and in, and male-bodied people have pelvic floors. You also have, that space. And if you've never done it, pressing in that space, that perineum, that space between the rectum and the testicles, if you press in there, you can actually go pretty deep into the pelvic floor muscles there. There's an opening in the pelvis, like the kind of the base of it. You can go in and see how like tender or tight those muscles are. You can do that on yourself. So the idea of the pelvic floor is not just that it gets tight and pulls up, which is what Kegels mostly are, this like tightening and lifting, the bone block in yoga, this notion of like tightening and lifting. That's only half of the dynamic of the pelvic floor. The other half is pressing down and opening. And for a lot of people, they actually have a harder time pressing down and opening than they do lifting. And for most people, it varies depending on their pelvic floor. So their left side can open and their right side can lift. And so if that's what's happening when you do a Kegel, you're just working like the one side. And so instead of doing Kegels, and the other thing is that most people's bodies, and this is true in general, unless you are very sedentary, if you have an active lifestyle, I'll put it that way, most of the time, and maybe even if you don't, I'm not sure about that, our bodies are stronger than we think they are. And that more often than not, it's our tension that's inhibiting our ability to engage and have access to our muscle strength, not our weakness. And so that's why like relaxation activities are so beneficial for like optimal performance for like athletes and performers and competitors, is because when we relax and soften, we have more dynamic ability with our body and with our muscles, which makes us more effective in our energy use, and thus we can use it better and better.
Do more.
That's right. Yeah. So doing a pelvic floor assessment on yourself, or doing the work of literally just like putting a finger inside, or male-bodied people, like I said, just pressing, taking a couple fingers, 2 or 3 fingers, and just pressing into that space and taking 3 to 5 breaths and pressing both taking a couple breaths where you press down, taking a couple breaths where you pull up, kind of doing that and assessing yourself and saying, you know, what does this feel like? What is it like? With female body people, you can put your finger inside if you have a vagina, and you can press forward and squeeze, press to the left, press to the back, press to the right. And a lot of the time, that's a very good way to show you're engaging very differently in your pelvic floor. And so one side might be a really strong pull up, and the other side might be barely an engagement at all.
Interesting.
So you can just do it on yourself. You can just, and I have like a free online course where I teach people how to do pelvic floor work on themselves and do an assessment and do all that stuff if people want to check that out.
Totally. Yeah.
Share that with you.
Yeah.
So we like do, so you kind of go around and get a sense of what feels good, what doesn't. Now I just want to pause here for a second because I can just feel that at least somebody there, if it's scary or it's hard to be in connection with yourself there, it's just the thought of it makes you get like a little bit lightheaded and like a little bit overwhelmed. Like it's totally fair and reasonable. I grew up like hippy dippy, naked, posy, loving self, like, really wonderful landscape for sure. I also woke up due to spiritual waking up due to chronic illness in my household, like just daily trauma happening. Okay. So all of that landscape of all the self-awareness, child mystic, all this stuff. When I first went to do pelvic floor work on myself, I was so scared and I couldn't do it. And I literally had to, at the time, have my partner hold my hand while I put one finger inside and breathed and pressed in each direction because I got into this work because I really needed it. I had my pelvis went into spasm and I was just in pain constantly, and sex became horrifically painful, and I couldn't even open. Like it was just like I just went into lockdown. And so for me, that was a very extreme experience. But I just want to say, like, if anybody feels like this seems like a little bit like disorienting or like a lot, it's like it was a lot, and it can be a lot. Now, to some of you listening, you're like, oh no, this totally makes sense. That sounds great. Like do a little tiny squat in the shower, put a finger up there, feel around. That'd be great. And that's a beautiful thing. And it doesn't have to be stressful. I'm not saying that. I just wanted to give voice to the feeling of if it feels really scary. And other people will go in, they'll check it out, and then they won't go back. They'll be like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then they just like avoid it. And that's the other thing that I did. I like gave myself a session and then avoided it for weeks. And then I was like, okay, like I need more help. Like, it's like,
right.
Like again, that notion of like, this is like a little bit intense. And so there are pelvic floor physical therapists. And then there are a number of different people that are specialized in holistic pelvic care. And then I integrated the holistic pelvic care training into my, like body wisdom approach, like the work that I've been doing for a long time. I call it shamanic pelvic floor work. So wow. A lot of that specifically looking for me, one of the things that I connect to a lot is inheritance, is that notion of what's been passed down for generations.
Right. I've been learning a lot about that recently, about how it's been passed down from mothers to grandmothers to great, 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 great. It just goes all the way back.
Yeah. And so that what gets passed down are both the traumas, the burdens, the fears, the lies, and also the gifts, the medicine, the talents, the joys, the abilities. And so what it is to heal for all of us, and what is it to awaken and to reveal for all of us.
Oh, I love it. This has been so much fun, Sophia. This has been amazing. And I completely forgot to mention earlier that Sophia also has a podcast. It's called Vagina Talks. So if you want, it's awesome. So if you want more on, come hang out with Sophia as she talks about vaginas and all this fun stuff. But yeah, definitely check her out. And I just had so much fun going through this and talking about it with you all. Cause I've, as you know, the community knows we're very factual and Q&A, and this is what this is, and trying to get the information out there that is, not essential, and try not to make it boring or so black and white, but make it fun. But what I really like is how Sophia has just gone into this whole other holistic way of not forgetting other body parts, and if, hey, this is happening, then gosh, this is probably what's happening, and just, it's been so entertaining, and definitely needed for our community to talk and look at yourself and feel your different areas of your body and what's going on and all that fun stuff. So I can't wait now to do the pelvic wall test. I'll try it out, and yeah, so definitely, Sophia, I'll have you send me the link to your course, but so I'll put it in the show notes for everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put it in the description, and go to sophiawiseone.com to check her out. Again, she has a podcast, also Instagram, as she said, Instagram's my jam. And you said Instagram's my jam. I actually wrote that down here in my notes. It's an Instagram jam. It's Sophia Wise One, and that's her handle. So you'll have to go find her, follow her. I follow her Insta stories, and they're always great. So I always learn something exciting about it. And I think that's it. I think that's all. I think that's awesome. This has been so much fun, and thank you for being here.
Oh my God, I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for your work and the courage and the generosity of spirit and how you do it. It's
Thank you.
I'm just grateful that you exist, and I'm so grateful to have you and all your knowledge and all your work out there. It's so beautiful when people come to me and I say, you got it, like this is the podcast, check this out, like this.
Thank you.
People come to me and they say, this is a part of my thing, and I say, that's great, have you heard this podcast? It's like, not so. I just am really grateful for your diligence, and I feel really honored to be part of that conversation and brought into that conversation. And I just, my invitation always is just like, what serves you, take it, be nourished. What doesn't serve you, just let it be.
Get rid of it.
Just let it go. I don't need you to believe it or keep it or anything. Like, what serves you, take, and just leave the rest.
Great. I can't wait to start talking to my herpes. We're going to have daily talks. We're going to have pelvic floor analysis. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be very busy now in the mornings. I have to get up really early now to get going.
Well, yeah. And then I will say, this is the bonus comment here, which is that pelvic bowls love blessings.
Ooh.
Blessings. So whatever comes up to you when you think of that, blessings, songs, flowers, energies, prayers, just the notion of blessings, because it's like that subtle knowing place. So as you're having these conversations and analyzing and looking around, just throw some blessings in the mix.
Ooh, I love that. Sparkles, all that fun.
All of it.
Yeah, glitter, rainbow sprinkles,
yes.
All that stuff. I saw this cute, as of now we're getting off topic because we're wrapping up, but my husband sent me this image it was an image of a rainbow kitten unicorn butterfly with like glitter. And he's like, sometimes everybody just needs this. And I was like, you're right. A rainbow kitten, like, cause rainbows, butterflies, glitter, like, it's like the funniest little meme. But yeah, like we all need a unicorn, kitten, rainbow, butterfly, glitter.
Yeah.
That's what our pelvic floor needs.
Yes. Thank you. I received that, and I am grateful. Thank you.
All right, Sophia, thank you so much.
Thank you.